Hey there, and welcome to Artificial Fluency. I'm John, your host for today.
And I'm Emma. Great to be with you all again.
Today we're tackling a question we get all the time from our listeners. How can I learn English faster? It seems like everyone wants to speed up their language learning journey. Right, Emma?
Absolutely, John, and I completely understand why. Learning a language takes time, and in our busy world, who has enough of that? Everyone's looking for shortcuts and more efficient methods.
Exactly. And there's no shortage of products and programs out there promising that you'll speak English in just 3 months or become fluent in 30 days.
Oh, those claims always make me laugh a little. I mean, if it were really that simple, we'd all be speaking multiple languages perfectly.
Right? But here's the thing. While those extreme claims are definitely marketing hype, there are legitimate ways to accelerate your English learning. Some methods really are more efficient than others.
That's exactly what we want to explore today. What techniques and approaches are actually proven to help you learn English faster? Not overnight miracles, but real strategies that can make a significant difference in your progress.
We'll cover a lot of ground today, from immersion techniques and high-impact daily habits to leveraging technology and avoiding common time wasters. Plus, we'll share some success stories from real learners who managed to make remarkable progress in relatively short time frames.
And as always, we'll keep it practical. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear action plan with specific steps you can take starting today to accelerate your English learning journey.
So let's dive in. Emma, I think a good place to start is addressing some misconceptions about fast language learning. What do you think?
Great idea! There are so many myths out there about rapid language learning that can actually slow people down because they set unrealistic expectations.
Exactly. I think the biggest myth is that there's some magical method or secret technique that will make you fluent without much effort.
Oh yes, the learn while you sleep or learn just by watching TV promises. The reality is that effective language learning still requires consistent effort. There's no way around that. But the good news is that the right kind of effort makes a huge difference.
Another common misconception is that children learn languages faster than adults. Many people think, well, I'm past the critical period, so it's going to be really slow and difficult for me.
That's such an important point. While children do have certain advantages, particularly with pronunciation, adults actually have many advantages in language learning. We have more developed cognitive abilities, better study skills, and the ability to understand abstract concepts like grammar rules.
Plus, we have stronger motivation and clearer goals, which turns out to be hugely important for efficient learning.
I think another myth worth addressing is that you need to memorize lots of vocabulary and grammar rules before you can start actually using the language.
Oh yeah, the preparation before practice approach. I see so many learners stuck in this trap, thinking they need to study more before they start speaking or writing.
When in reality, the fastest progress comes when you balance input and output from day one. You learn some basics, immediately start using them, get feedback, adjust, and keep going.
Exactly. It's an iterative process rather than a linear one. You don't need to reach some magical threshold of knowledge before you start using English.
And that leads to one last myth I think we should address: the idea that making mistakes will slow you down or ingrain bad habits. This fear keeps so many learners from practicing, which ironically really does slow down their progress.
So true. The fastest learners are usually the ones who are least concerned about making mistakes. They understand that errors are just feedback that helps them adjust and improve.
Absolutely. So to summarize the reality, learning English quickly still requires consistent effort. Adults can learn very efficiently. You should practice using the language right away, and mistakes are a normal and helpful part of the process.
Great summary. Now let's talk about what actually works for accelerating English learning.
I think there are a few key principles that research consistently shows make a huge difference in language learning speed.
The first one has to be frequency, right? Regular, ideally daily, contact with the language seems to be more important than marathon study sessions once a week.
Absolutely. The brain builds neural pathways through consistent exposure and practice. Even 20 to 30 minutes every day is far more effective than 3 to 4 hours once a week. Though of course more daily time can accelerate things further.
I always tell my students, consistency beats intensity when it comes to language learning.
The second principle is what linguists call comprehensible input, being exposed to English that's just slightly above your current level.
Right. The material should be challenging enough to push you forward, but not so difficult that you're completely lost. You want that sweet spot where you understand maybe 80 to 90% of what you're hearing or reading.
Exactly. And closely related to that is the third principle, relevance. We learn much faster when the content is personally interesting or immediately useful to us.
That makes so much sense. If you're learning business English because you need it for your job, focusing on business materials will be much more efficient than studying general English or topics you don't care about.
The fourth principle is active engagement. Passive exposure to English, like having it play in the background while you do other things, simply doesn't create the same neural connections as actively engaging with the language.
And active engagement means different things for different skills, right? For listening, it might mean trying to understand specific information or summarizing what you heard. For reading, it could be answering questions about the text or explaining it to someone else.
Yes, and for speaking and writing, it means actually producing language and getting feedback on it. The feedback loop is crucial for rapid improvement.
That brings us to the fifth principle, spaced repetition. Our brains learn better when we revisit information at strategic intervals rather than all at once.
This is especially important for vocabulary. Instead of reviewing a word once and assuming you've learned it, research shows you need to encounter it multiple times with increasing time intervals between exposures.
And finally, there's the immersion principle, surrounding yourself with as much English as possible in your daily life.
Immersion is powerful because it increases both the quantity and variety of your exposure to English. When you're constantly encountering the language in different contexts, your brain gets better at recognizing patterns and making connections.
These principles provide the foundation for accelerated learning. Now let's talk about how to apply them in practical, daily habits.
If someone wants to learn English as quickly as possible, what should their daily routine look like?
I think it needs to include activities that target all four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing, with an emphasis on whichever skills are most relevant to their goals.
And it should incorporate those principles we just discussed: frequency, comprehensible input, relevance, active engagement, spaced repetition, and elements of immersion.
Exactly. So let's break it down into specific daily habits. For listening practice, I recommend starting the day with 15 to 20 minutes of active listening using level-appropriate content.
Podcasts designed for English learners are perfect for this. They usually speak clearly and at a controlled pace. You can gradually progress to authentic content like news broadcasts, TED Talks, or regular podcasts as your skills improve.
The key is to make it active. Don't just listen passively. Take notes, try to summarize what you heard, or shadow the speaker by repeating what they say with minimal delay.
Shadowing is so powerful for connecting listening and speaking skills. It helps with pronunciation, intonation, and speech patterns.
For reading practice, I suggest 15 to 20 minutes of daily reading with material that's at that sweet spot. We mentioned challenging but not overwhelming.
Graded readers are great for beginners and intermediate learners. News websites like News and Levels or BBC Learning English offer articles at different difficulty levels. More advanced learners can move on to regular articles, blog posts, or books on topics they're interested in.
Again, active engagement is key. Don't just passively scan the text. Ask yourself questions about it, summarize key points, or look up and note down a few useful words or phrases to add to your vocabulary practice.
Speaking practice is often the most challenging to incorporate daily, especially if you're not living in an English-speaking environment. But it's absolutely essential for fast progress.
There are several approaches here. If possible, scheduling regular conversation practice with a language exchange partner or tutor is incredibly valuable. Even just 2 to 3 sessions per week can make a huge difference.
And on days when you don't have a conversation partner, you can still practice speaking. Talk to yourself about your day, describe what you see around you, or explain concepts you're learning about as if you were teaching someone else.
Recording yourself speaking and then listening back is also really effective. It helps you notice your own errors and areas for improvement.
For writing practice, a daily journal entry in English can be very effective. Even just 10 minutes of writing about your day or your thoughts on a particular topic builds your skills surprisingly quickly.
And if you can get feedback on your writing regularly, maybe once or twice a week, that accelerates your progress even more. There are online communities where you can submit writing for feedback, or you can work with a tutor.
Vocabulary building should also be part of the daily routine. But rather than trying to memorize long lists of random words, I recommend focusing on words and phrases that you've encountered in your reading and listening.
Yes, context-based vocabulary learning is much more effective. Use a spaced repetition system like Anki or Quizlet to review these words regularly according to an optimal schedule.
Another powerful daily habit is changing your phone and social media language settings to English. This creates mini immersion moments throughout your day.
And similarly, try to incorporate English into your existing routines. Listen to English music while exercising, Watch TV shows in English instead of your native language. Or follow English-speaking content creators related to your hobbies or interests.
The key is making English a regular part of your day rather than treating it as a separate activity that you do only during study time.
Exactly. When you combine all these habits, you create a powerful daily routine that drives rapid progress. Of course, not everyone can dedicate multiple hours every day to language learning. In that case, you might need to rotate some of these activities throughout the week.
Even then, consistency is more important than duration. 15 minutes every day will yield better results than 2 hours once a week.
Let's talk about how technology can help accelerate English learning. There are so many apps, platforms, and tools available now, it can actually be overwhelming.
Absolutely. The key is being selective and using technology strategically rather than just downloading every language app you can find.
I like to think about technology tools in categories based on what they help you with. First, there are comprehensive learning platforms like Duolingo, Babbel, or Rosetta Stone. These can be useful supplements, especially for beginners, but they shouldn't be your only method of learning.
I agree. These platforms are good for introducing concepts and providing structured practice, but they rarely get you to advanced levels of fluency on their own.
Then there are specialized tools for specific skills. For vocabulary, spaced repetition apps like Anki or Quizlet are incredibly effective when used consistently.
For pronunciation, apps like Elsa Speak or AI-powered features in language learning platforms can give you immediate feedback on your pronunciation of specific sounds and words.
Listening comprehension can be improved with podcasts designed for English learners, like Artificial Fluency, of course, or apps like Lyrics Training that turn music into learning activities.
For reading, e-readers like Kindle are fantastic because they let you look up unfamiliar words instantly and even save them for later review.
And for speaking practice, platforms like italki or Cambly connect you with native speakers for conversation practice, while Tandem or HelloTalk help you find language exchange partners.
One technology approach I really like is using AI language partners like ChatGPT for writing feedback and conversation practice. They're not perfect, but they can give you unlimited practice opportunities at any time of day.
That's a great point. AI tools can provide immediate feedback and are infinitely patient, which makes them valuable practice partners. They're particularly good for helping you prepare for real conversations with humans.
One warning about technology, though, it's easy to fall into the trap of just swiping and tapping without deeply engaging with the language. Make sure you're not just going through the motions.
Absolutely. Technology should support active learning, not replace it. Use it intentionally as part of your overall strategy.
Let's talk about what realistic progress looks like. While everyone's learning journey is different, it helps to have some benchmarks.
Right? I've worked with hundreds of English learners over the years, and I've seen some achieve remarkable progress in relatively short time frames, but it's important to understand the factors that enabled their success.
One of my favorite success stories is Miguel, a student from Brazil who went from basic English to professional working proficiency in about 8 months. But here's the key: he was incredibly consistent with his practice, spending about 2 hours every day on English.
And he was living in an English-speaking environment, which created natural immersion and necessity, powerful accelerators for learning.
Exactly. Then there's Zuki from Japan, who prepared for a business presentation in English with just 3 months of focused study. She didn't become fully fluent in that time, but she developed enough specific skills to successfully deliver her presentation and handle questions.
That's a great example of targeted learning for a specific goal, which is often more efficient than trying to master the entire language at once.
Another inspiring case is Ahmed, who improved his IELTS score from 5.5 to 7.0 in 6 months of dedicated study, opening the door to his dream university program abroad.
What all these success stories have in common is clear goals, consistent practice habits, and strategic approaches. None of them found a magical shortcut, but they all maximized their learning efficiency.
So, what are realistic expectations? With consistent daily practice of 1 to 2 hours, most learners can advance one full proficiency level, like from A2 to B1, or B1 to B2 on the CEFR scale, in about 4 to 6 months.
And of course, progress isn't linear. You'll experience periods of rapid growth, followed by plateaus where it seems like you're not improving. That's completely normal and part of the learning process. As we wrap up today's episode, let's summarize the key strategies for learning English faster.
First, practice consistently, ideally daily, even if it's just for short periods. Frequency beats intensity.
Second, ensure you're getting comprehensible input that's relevant to your goals and interests. This maximizes both your motivation and learning efficiency.
Third, actively engage with the language rather than passively consuming it. For every skill, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, find ways to make your practice active and challenging.
Fourth, use spaced repetition for vocabulary and grammar concepts to optimize how your brain forms and strengthens memory connections.
Fifth, create immersion opportunities in your daily life by changing device languages, consuming English media, and finding ways to make English part of your existing routines. John. And finally, use technology strategically to supplement your learning and provide addition.
And finally, use technology strategically to supplement your learning and provide additional practice opportunities, especially for skills that are harder to practice in your current environment.
If you implement these strategies consistently, you will see faster progress. Not overnight, but certainly faster than with unstructured or sporadic study.
We'd love to hear about your English learning journey. What strategies have helped you make rapid progress? What challenges are you facing? Leave a comment on our website or social media channels.
Next week, we'll be diving into the specifics of advanced conversation skills. Until then, happy learning.
Thanks for listening to Artificial Fluency. I'm John.
And I'm Emma. See you next time.